Dark clouds rolled across the edge of space as the enemy swarm drifted toward the silent human outpost. For weeks, no one had heard a single message from Station Greyline. Now, only one thing remained clear: something terrible had happened there. Captain Rourke stood on the command deck of the human flagship Valor's Edge, watching the ruined station slowly spin on the main screen. The metal walls were torn open. The lights were dead. Cold dust drifted out into the stars like frozen smoke. The bridge crew said nothing. Everyone felt the same heavy pressure in their chest. Then the sensors cracked alive. A sharp alarm echoed through the ship. "Movement inside the debris," shouted the sensor officer. The screen zoomed in. Dark shapes crawled along the shattered station hull, thin, long, and insect-like. Their limbs moved too fast. Their eyes glowed like burning coals. The crew went silent again. Everyone already knew who they were. The Krail. The oldest enemy humanity had ever faced. A species that never talked, never stopped, and never left survivors. The bridge lights dimmed as every ship in the battle fleet shifted into combat readiness. The huge metal bodies of human dreadnoughts and cruisers changed formation, building a wide wall in front of the enemy approach. Each ship locked weapons, engines humming like deep thunder. Yet even with all this power, there was fear. Because no one had ever seen Krail scouts this far inside human territory. And no one knew how many more were coming behind them. Captain Rourke gave a slow breath and pointed ahead. "Move in. Recover what we can. Prepare for contact." The fleet advanced. As the first human patrol boats reached the broken station, a sudden burst of red light flashed from behind the wreckage. A second alarm screamed. Dozens, no, hundreds, of Krail ships unfolded out of the darkness. They looked like black metal spiders, each one armed and ready. "They were waiting for us," whispered the navigator, and then everything happened at once. The Krail ships launched forward like a swarm of blades. The battle fleet responded with a wave of blue energy fire. The empty space between them turned into a wall of explosions, sparks, and drifting metal. Humanity's battle fleet had arrived. And the enemy had chosen the wrong moment to reveal themselves. The real battle was only beginning. You said the first minutes of the battle shook every ship in the fleet. Bright flashes lit the dark space like storms on a silent ocean. But even as the front line clashed with the Krail swarm, Captain Rourke had another mission in mind, one that could decide the fate of every human world. "Boarding teams, move now," he ordered. Small human shuttles broke away from the fleet and darted toward the ruined Station Greyline. They weaved between burning Krail fighters and drifting metal as they rushed into the open wounds of the station. One shuttle carried Lieutenant Mara Keene, the youngest officer ever trusted with a high-risk rescue run. Her shuttle shook as debris scraped against the hull. "Easy. Almost there," the pilot muttered. They slipped into the station's broken hangar. Lights flickered weakly. Everything was cold. Everything was still. The team stepped out, flashlights cutting through dust. Mara's voice was steady, but her hands trembled around her rifle. "Stay close. Find survivors. Find anything." They searched through twisted hallways and shattered rooms. Human bodies lay where they fell, frozen and pale. The team moved quietly, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness. Everyone felt like the walls were watching them. Then, in the command room, they found something strange. A single console still glowed. Not bright, but alive. Mara rushed toward it. The screen flickered, showing broken images, alarms, running crew, shadows moving across the station. Then a woman's voice crackled through the damaged speakers. "This is Commander Hale. Station Greyline. If you hear this, the Krail were not looking for us. They were searching for a signal. Something hidden." Static cut her off. The image shook. The next words were clear enough to freeze everyone in place. "They know humanity's location markers. They know our travel lanes. They know the path to our home worlds." The console sparked and died. Mara stared at the blank screen. A chill ran down her spine. "They weren't attacking the station," she whispered. "They were stealing information." Before anyone could respond, the floor shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. The team turned. Krail drones were crawling out from the dark vents, their metal legs clicking on the floor, eyes burning red. "Contact! Fall back," Mara shouted. The boarding team fired as they retreated, their gunfire echoing through the dead station. Outside, Captain Rourke watched the battle grow worse. The enemy numbers were rising fast. And now he knew the truth: the Krail weren't just here to fight. They were preparing for something far bigger. The boarding team sprinted through the ruined station, weapons firing behind them. Krail drones crawled across the walls and ceiling, racing after them like metal insects. Each drone screeched in a sharp, grinding sound that cut through the air. Lieutenant Mara Keen fired one last burst, blowing a drone off the ceiling. Move! To the hangar, she shouted. They reached the hangar as their shuttle pilot opened the ramp. Get in. Now. The team piled inside. The engines roared. The shuttle blasted out of the station just as a swarm of drones poured from the broken docking doors. Blue exhaust flames carried the shuttle back toward the battle fleet. On the flagship Valor's Edge, Captain Rourke listened as Mara's report played across the bridge. The crew stood stiff, eyes wide, as they heard the message from Commander Hale, the warning that the Krail had stolen human navigation markers. If the Krail could trace humanity's travel lanes, they could find the core worlds. Earth included. Rourke turned toward the sensor station. Any sign they transmitted the stolen data? The officer swallowed. Yes, sir. And something else. A strong energy buildup behind the enemy lines. The screen zoomed in on the distant swarm. Between the Krail ships, something large was forming, a shape of dark armor plates unfolding like a blooming iron flower. Rourke's face hardened. What is that? No one knew. Then the scanner lights flashed red. The new Krail structure pulsed once. And fired. A massive wave of crackling energy rippled through space. It struck the nearest human cruiser first. The entire ship flickered like a dying light bulb. Its engines died. Its shields collapsed. The cruiser drifted helplessly as smaller Krail craft jumped onto it like scavengers. The bridge crew stared in shock. It's not a weapon that destroys, said the science officer. It shuts them down. It drains power. A silence filled the bridge. A weapon that could disable human ships in seconds. Rourke clenched his jaw. They stole our navigation data. And they built a weapon to kill our fleet's power. They're preparing for a full invasion. Outside the viewports, the Krail lines opened again. More ships were arriving. Larger ones. Heavier ones. The enemy was no longer probing or testing. They were preparing to push through the battle fleet and strike directly at human space. Captain Rourke looked at the growing darkness ahead and spoke quietly. We must stop them here. Or humanity will stand alone. The bridge of the Valor's Edge shook as another pulse from the Krail weapon swept across the battlefield. Human ships struggled to stay online. Lights flickered. Engines sputtered. Every second, more vessels fell dark and drifted helplessly. Captain Rourke knew the truth. They could not fight much longer. We need options, he said firmly. Fast. The science officer, Dr. Kessler, quickly opened a display showing the enemy's new weapon, the huge dark structure shaped like a twisted flower. The energy pulses move in a cycle, she explained. Every 60 seconds, the weapon charges. But during the charge, there's a 10-second window where it cannot fire. Rourke leaned forward. A weakness? Kessler nodded. A small one. But yes. The bridge crew exchanged tense looks. 10 seconds was almost nothing in a battle like this. But it was something. Rourke turned to his tactical officer. If we hit that weapon directly, can we destroy it? Only if we get close, the officer replied. Our long-range shots are too weak. We need a strike team. The captain's eyes narrowed. Then we send one. A quiet settled across the bridge as the idea sank in. A strike team would have to fly through the swarm, dodge enemy fire, and land on the weapon itself. It was a mission with almost no chance of survival. But if they didn't try, the fleet would fall. Rourke opened the comm. Lieutenant Mara Keen. Report to the briefing room. Moments later, Mara stepped onto the deck, still covered in dust from Station Greyline. She looked tired, but her eyes stayed sharp. Sir? You found the truth about their plan, Rourke said. Now we need to stop it. We're sending a team to destroy the Krail weapon. I want you to lead it. Mara hesitated only once. Understood. Rourke continued, you'll take 3 fast assault shuttles. They'll split up, draw fire, and create confusion. Your shuttle will slip through during the weapon's charging window. You'll land on the structure, plant charges, and get out before it detonates. Mara gave a steady nod. I'll get it done. As she left to gather her team, the ship shook again. More human vessels were being disabled. More Krail ships were pouring into the battlefield. Time was running out. Rourke looked at the growing swarm outside the window and whispered, this mission must succeed. Or we lose everything. The hangar of the Valor's Edge buzzed with urgent activity as Lieutenant Mara Keen and her team prepared for launch. Engineers rushed around the 3 assault shuttles, fitting extra armor plates, loading explosive charges, and checking every engine line. The air smelled like fuel and hot metal. Mara stood at the front of her shuttle, helmet under her arm, watching her team climb aboard. Each face showed the same mix of fear and determination. They all knew the truth, most of them might not return. But no one stepped back. A loudspeaker echoed through the hangar. All hands, stand clear. Strike team preparing for launch. Mara took one last look at the massive hangar doors opening to the battlefield. Beyond them lay a storm of fire, blue human blasts, red Krail shots, drifting debris, and the huge enemy weapon pulsing with deadly energy. She climbed aboard and strapped in. "Pilot, take us out." The 3 assault shuttles lifted off and shot into open space like silver arrows. Immediately, the darkness lit up with enemy fire. "Shuttle 2 taking hits," someone shouted over the comms. But the shuttles kept going. Captain Rourke watched from the bridge, jaw tight. The mission had begun, and the entire fleet was trying to draw attention away from Mara's team. Human ships opened fire in wide waves. Battleships pushed forward, forcing the Krail swarm to split. Every crew member in the fleet fought harder than ever, knowing they had to buy those precious 10 seconds. Inside Mara's shuttle, alarms blared as red laser streaks zipped past the windows. Krail fighters swooped in, black and sharp like blades. One dove straight toward them. "Hold on!" The pilot yelled. The shuttle rolled hard to the left. The enemy fighter missed by inches and crashed into a piece of debris, exploding in a flash of orange. Charging cycle starting. Dr. Kessler's voice warned through the comm. "You have 20 seconds until the 10-second window." Mara leaned forward. "Shuttles 2 and 3, break formation. Draw their fire. Now." The other 2 shuttles split off, firing at anything that moved. Dozens of Krail fighters turned to chase them, leaving Mara's shuttle racing alone toward the weapon. The giant structure loomed ahead, dark metal plates glowing with pulsing energy. Kessler's voice crackled again. "Weapon entering charge window. Now." "Go," Mara shouted. The pilot pushed the engines to full power. The shuttle surged forward, slipping through the final burst of enemy fire and racing straight toward the heart of the Krail superweapon. The 10 seconds had begun. And everything depended on them. The assault shuttle slammed onto the surface of the Krail weapon with a hard metallic thud. The landing gear screeched against the strange dark metal, which felt more like living armor than any machine humans had ever touched. The shuttle's ramp dropped open immediately. "Move," Mara ordered. Her team rushed out, their boots clanging on the alien structure. Strange red energy lines pulsed under their feet, growing brighter as the weapon charged again. The air around them buzzed like a giant heart beating too fast. Mara pointed toward a narrow opening between 2 rising metal plates. "The core chamber should be inside there. Plant the charges and get out before it fires again." The team ran toward the opening, ducking as enemy fire streaked past overhead. Krail drones burst from hidden slots in the armor, crawling out with blinding speed. Their metal legs clattered as they swarmed toward the humans. "Drones incoming," shouted Corporal Jin. Mara raised her rifle. "Hold them back. Stay tight." Gunfire flashed as the team fought through the first wave. Sparks flew off the drone's armor, and broken metal limbs scattered across the deck. But more drones emerged, too many to count. The team pushed through the opening and entered a long tunnel glowing with red veins of energy. The walls felt alive, vibrating beneath their touch. At the far end, a large chamber opened up, filled with swirling energy coils and a giant pulsating core at the center. "That's it," Mara breathed. "The heart of the weapon." Sergeant Vale stepped forward and slapped a heavy explosive pack against one of the support pillars. "Charge 1 set." Another team member planted a second pack. "Charge 2 set." Suddenly, the chamber trembled. A loud mechanical roar echoed through the structure. The red lights brightened into a blinding glow. Kessler's voice crackled faintly through Mara's comm. "Mara. The weapon is charging again. You have less than 30 seconds before the next blast." Mara's eyes widened. "Everyone, fall back. Now." The team sprinted toward the tunnel, but the walls began to shift. Plates slid closed. New vents opened. More drones crawled out, blocking their escape. Jin fired wildly. "They're sealing us in." Mara grabbed his arm. "Keep moving." They burst out of the tunnel and onto the surface again, just as their shuttle shook violently from incoming fire. The pilot yelled, "We can't stay much longer." Mara hit her comm. "Charges planted. Prepare for pickup." But when she looked back, the drones were still coming, thousands of them. The weapon was seconds from firing. And they had only one chance left to escape alive. The surface of the Krail weapon shook like a waking monster. Red cracks of energy flashed under Mara's boots as she and her team ran toward the shuttle. Behind them, thousands of drones climbed out of the glowing armor, their metal legs clicking like endless claws. "Faster," Mara shouted. Her lungs burned, but she didn't slow. The shuttle hovered just above the surface, engines screaming as the pilot fought to keep it steady under the storm of enemy fire. "We need to leave now," he yelled over the comm. Sergeant Vale stumbled. Mara grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. They dove onto the ramp as the first line of drones reached them. "Go," she cried. The pilot yanked the controls, lifting the shuttle just as drones slammed into the ramp. The metal plate snapped shut, cutting them off. The inside shook as the engines fired to full thrust. Kessler's voice crackled through the comm again. "Mara, the weapon is seconds away from firing. If it does, it will disable the entire fleet." "Understood," Mara replied, breathless. "Detonate the charges when we're clear." The shuttle raced away from the enemy weapon, weaving through debris and enemy shots. Outside the window, the giant structure glowed brighter and brighter, like a star about to explode. Captain Rourke watched from the bridge of the Valor's edge. The whole fleet waited in silence. Every ship was damaged. Many were drifting. The next pulse could finish them. "Distance to safe detonation?" Rourke asked. 5 seconds, replied the tactical officer. 4. 3. Inside the shuttle, Mara held onto the seat straps. Her team braced for impact. 2. 1. Detonate, Rourke ordered. A bright flash erupted across space. The charges exploded deep inside the weapon's core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire structure cracked open. A massive wave of red energy burst outward, then collapsed back in on itself. The weapon folded like a dying star and vanished in a single, silent implosion. The shockwave swept across the battlefield, tearing Krail drones apart and disabling their fighters. Cheers erupted across every human ship. "They did it," someone shouted. On the shuttle, Mara let out a long breath. Her team slumped in relief. Rourke smiled for the first time that day. "Signal the fleet. Counterattack." Human ships powered forward, blasting through the now confused Krail swarm. One by one, the enemy fell apart. The tide had finally turned. And as the last Krail ship exploded in the distance, Captain Rourke spoke softly. "Humanity stands. Today. We endure." The battlefield slowly fell quiet. Burned metal drifted through space like dark snow. Human ships formed a tired but proud wall, their engines dim but holding steady. For the first time since the battle began, the stars looked calm again. But Captain Rourke did not feel calm. He stood at the center of the bridge, eyes fixed on the long-range scans. The destruction of the Krail weapon had saved the fleet, yet something bothered him. The Krail never built something that large without a reason. They never attacked this deep into human space without a guiding force. And they never, ever retreated. But now they were fleeing. The remaining Krail ships scattered away from the battlefield, twisting and breaking formation as they escaped into the dark. It was strange, almost frantic. "Why are they running?" the navigator asked. "They never run." Rourke narrowed his eyes. "They're afraid." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy looks. The Krail were terrifying, pitiless, and unstoppable. What could possibly make them afraid? Before anyone could answer, the sensor station beeped loudly. "Captain, we're detecting an object beyond the last Krail ships. Very large. Very faint." "Show it," Rourke ordered. The main screen flickered, then focused. A shadow appeared in the distance. Not a ship. Not a station. Something else. Something enormous. Its shape was hard to understand, like a mountain drifting in space, covered in strange patterns that pulsed slowly like dim stars. Mara entered the bridge just as the image sharpened. Her breath caught. That wasn't here before." The science officer's voice trembled. "Whatever it is. It was hidden. Maybe behind a cloaking field. The Krail attack may have been cover for it." The shadow pulsed once, sending ripples across the darkness. Rourke stepped closer to the screen. "Is it hostile?" No one answered. The object didn't move. It didn't drift. It simply waited in the distant void. Then the Krail did something no one had ever seen. Their fleeing ships turned sharply, not toward a human world, not toward safer territory, but toward the shadow. They gathered around it like frightened animals seeking shelter. The shadow pulsed again, brighter this time. The sensor officer whispered, "Sir. I don't think the Krail were the real enemy today." The bridge fell silent. Rourke felt a cold weight settle in his chest. The battle had been hard. The cost had been high. But this thing, this massive, ancient, silent presence, felt different. It felt older. Stronger. And it was watching them. Rourke straightened slowly. "Get me every ship, Captain. We need to talk." Humanity had won a battle. But something far worse had just awakened.